and welcome back to the Illuminated podcast, where we're illuminating the wisdom that's been here all along. Thank you so much for all your enthusiasm around the gallbladder episode. It was such a fun one to record, and welcome to all our new friends that joined us this past month. I'm so happy you're here. Today, I'm excited to be sharing with you a little bit about the fire element. We're headed into, well, for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, we're moving into fire season or summer. And for those in the Southern Hemisphere, you're moving from metal into water, from autumn into winter. So you might want to go check out those episodes here on the channel when we're done here. But wherever you are, seasonal shifts are happening. Have you noticed? Did you know that there are 24 solar terms in the ancient Chinese calendar? They're basically mini seasons based on the sun's annual rotation, and each term is about 2 weeks long. Fire season starts to make itself known in subtle shifts in early May during the beginning of summer solar term, which is technically around May 5th to May 20th. Or the midpoint between spring equinox and summer solstice. So in these shifts, we feel yang start to increase. The days get longer, flowers start blooming. The sun, which is the ultimate fire in our galaxy, feels warmer and warmer as its rays begin to hit Earth at a more steep angle than other times of the year, meaning the light doesn't spread out as much. It's more concentrated, more focused, which increases the amount of energy beaming into any given area. Sort of like a quick pause where the divine hovers over us more intensely, reminding us how ephemeral and sacred life is, filling us with more energy to bloom into our true being. I want you to think about this as we move through today's episode. All about the fire element. During the most fire, yang time of year, summer, the sun's energy is most intent on infusing us with life-giving energy, encouraging our radiance, asking for the full expression of our unique us-ness, inviting us to take up more space within our own field and the world. Welcoming our spirit to extend more wholly into our rare and sacred embodiment. It's a special time of year. And isn't it interesting that we've been made to fear the sun and told to cover up and wear sunscreen and block it out? Kind of wild. This season, summer, is a time the ancients knew to utilize wisely, not only for greater activation of our physical bodies and supporting vibrant health all year, but also for the invigoration and illumination of who we are meant to be here. All right, so we're going to jump in. We're going to get into the nuts and bolts of the fire element with our seasonal resonances. The fire elemental resonances or correspondences. So as I mentioned, the season of the fire element is summertime. There are 4 organ officials here, whereas all the other elements have 2 organ officials. So that's important. And we'll talk about it more here in a bit. But the organ officials associated with the fire element are the heart, the small intestine, the pericardium, and the triple warmer. Remember, we spoke about the triple warmer a little bit in the gallbladder episode. We'll speak more about him here today, but there's also a ton more information in that gallbladder episode. So the times of day governed by the fire element, there are 4 different times of day because there are 4 different organ officials. So the heart time of day is from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. The small intestine time of day is from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. The pericardium time is 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And triple warmer time is 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. And then 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. is when the gallbladder picks up. So remember, they're connected there. The emotion associated with the fire element is joy. And in a healthy fire element, that joy is modulated easily and appropriately ebbs and flows with the circumstances. When fire is imbalanced, that emotion of joy can show up as either sort of manic, kind of a frantic grasping at happiness, or it can look like a flatness or a sort of lack of joy that can kind of dull connection with others and with self. The life phase of the fire element is the bloom. The color associated with the fire element is red. So any red color has a resonance with the fire element. And it can be, like with regard to food or color therapy, reds can be very supportive for the fire element, but it can also show up pathologically, in different rednesses. If we're talking about facial diagnosis or auricular ear diagnosis, different reds on the tongue, that kind of thing. So it can be colors in general can be used as diagnostic tools for pathology, and the red color can also be used as a support for the fire element or any of the elements. The odor associated with the fire element is scorched. So when fire is healthy, it's like a hot iron on a cotton shirt or like dry grass in the summertime. When fire is imbalanced in the body, that scorched odor is more potent and yucky. So like imbalanced scorch smells kind of like burnt popcorn or overly charred meat or leftover bonfire, kind of that funk. The sound associated with the fire element is laughter, and that can be like just normal, healthy laughter. It can also be kind of a weird laughter, like an inappropriate laughter, like laughing at weird times. And it can also be this sort of lifting quality in the voice that it's sort of, it sounds like they're laughing when they're talking, but also almost like a question is being asked, but it's not. And then the healing sound for the fire element is ha, and it's hard to make that sound without feeling. I mean, if you hit the right tone, you can definitely feel it in your heart and your heart center, and you can feel that space kind of vibrate and open up. But it also, it's hard not to smile when you make that sound. And that's how you know you hit the right tone. The flavor associated with the fire element is bitter. And bitter foods are also really supportive for the fire element, including the organ systems that are associated with fire. Bitter is a yin quality, so it sort of helps modulate excessive. It's sort of that bringing water in to help balance out the fire. The sense organ associated with the fire element is the tongue, but more as it has to do with speech, speaking coherently, speaking from the heart, speaking intelligently, and rather than like taste. Tongue and taste has more to do with the earth element that we'll talk about next time. Body tissues associated with the fire element are the blood vessels. Makes sense. We're talking about the heart and the cardiovascular system. The mantra from my teacher, Lori Deshar, associated with the fire element is, I blossom. I love that mental image, that feeling, I blossom. The spirit associated with the fire element is the Shen. It's the organizing force of our existence. It's the light of our consciousness and the radiant spark of the divine that we carry within ourselves. Shen is our capacity for conscious awareness, for knowing ourselves, and for relating with others. It's also the extent to which we're able to connect with the divinity that illuminates all things. In her book, Kigo, my teacher Lori Deshar says that the Shen presides over and organizes awareness on all levels. Fire energy is the activating, uplifting, and outward movement of life coming into the fullness of itself. Think about that bloom. It's the only element that extends beyond its own edges through its light and warmth, while also staying anchored to its source to maintain stable sustainability and reach its fullest radiant potential. That fire needs the yin in order to be all of itself. It's the effervescence of joy we feel flickering through ourselves when we're truly lit up and in love with what we're doing. Fire is also very paradoxical. It's a short, fleeting season where yang is full and exuberant, and then just as quickly, yin begins to move in, and we're reminded how fast things can change. Life needs warmth to function and thrive, but too much heat can be fiercely destructive. There's an obvious magnetism and connection available with fire, and also the need for clear boundaries is never more evident than it is in the fire element. Fire wants to move up and out. It's quick moving and bright, and it also needs constant connection to a more yin source like wood in order to burn sustainably over time rather than burning out before it reaches its fullness. The fire within us, the light of our Shen, the coherence of our spirit and quality of our consciousness depends on a rooted connection with the yin of our physical bodies. The vitality of our life force expands and radiates most when it courses through our yin veins, enlivening process and presence as it structures and informs our living waters within. There's a couple of questions that I like to share with people when we're looking at the vitality of their fire element. So the first one is, where in my life am I radiating the fullness of myself? Where am I feeling overextended, diminished, or burnt out? How am I expressing my true self in my life? How am I relating with others? How are my boundaries? It's a big win for fire. Okay, so those are the nuts and bolts, the seasonal resonances for fire. Okay, so we talked a little bit about in those seasonal resonances, we mentioned that there are 4 organ officials governed by the fire element. Now, the fact that so it's the heart as an organ official and the 3 guardians of the heart. So the fact that there are 3 heart protectors within the fire element immediately tells us something. As much as fire is about warmth, connection, and enjoyment, we also see clearly here the importance of boundaries and discernment. I've said it a few times already, and I'm going to say it a few times more. Boundaries and discernment are a thing here in the fire element, necessarily so. Just as growing life is held safe inside an egg, a womb, or a seed, the heart, the monarch, the sovereign ruler of our organs, our rhythms, our consciousness, and our entire beingness must remain empty, at peace, not filled with noise, toxins, interference, etc., in order to be a suitable and sacred dwelling for the Shen, for our spirit. I'll say it again differently. The fire element and the heart as the ruler of our body is also home to our eternal speck of divinity. It's home to our spirit while we're here having this human experience. This kind of sacredness really necessitates layers, boundaries, and keen discernment for who and what's allowed into the inner core, into the kingdom, into the heart space. You know how we feel out of it or like I've left my body when something traumatic, either physically or emotionally, happens, or even something too exciting or too joyful happens? The Shen, the spirit, fairly easily flies out of the nest like a tiny bird in a windstorm. If the heart is overburdened, shocked, or disturbed by too much activity or too much joy, the Shen tends to leave the body, and the ability to know self versus other, right for me versus not right for me, good versus bad, will be compromised. The resulting Shen disturbance can manifest in many ways, such as anxiety, restlessness, panic, insomnia, dissociation, muddled thinking, depression, etc. There's a general feeling of being unable to connect with the true self and a sense of life lacking meaning or purpose. There's an inability to connect to and relate with the divinity in all things. So it's easy now to see why the heart, the home of the Shen, has 3 guardians or officials surrounding it. And I want to talk more about each of those 3 officials here quickly. So the first one that we're going to talk about is that triple warmer. Again, we spoke about it a little bit in the gallbladder episode. It's that fire within water. The classics say that the way or the Tao of water comes from here. Those are classical references alluding to the animating, intelligent consciousness that lives in water and enlivens the empty spaces or the interstitium and its fluids that oversee all communication, interaction, and activities that happen there. It's the slipstream to the Tao, our unique way or path. It's the space between where energetic flow, conductivity, and life force travel. In the analogy of the kingdom as a protector of the heart or Shen, we find the triple warmer at the outer frontier gate, the outermost gate. It's the keeper of the moat who decides who's allowed to travel within waterways around the kingdom and who should gain entrance into the kingdom itself. So there's lots of surveying, lots of monitoring, communicating, repairing damaged walls and passages, calling in for more nourishment and resource. It's the triple warmer is the interface between the inner and outer worlds. So something to notice is, what is your body communicating during that triple warmer time from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m.? Does your body feel wired but tired, overstimulated? What are some ways you can clear and empty your field as you get ready for bed? We'll talk more about that in a little bit. All right, so next we're going to talk about the pericardium. And the pericardium is paired with the triple warmer. And it's a protective sac woven of connective tissue. Remember the gallbladder episode in our chat about the fascia? It's woven of fascia. It holds the heart at the core. The pericardium is a semi-permeable membrane that, when healthy, allows love, warmth, safety, and trust to pass through it, into and out from the heart, as well as determining when things should stay outside the monarch's sacred chamber and when things should stay outside. So it decides what should stay in and what should stay out. It's flexible when it's healthy and easily chooses healthy yeses and healthy nos. The pericardium system governs circulation of blood and sexual hormones. It also takes a lot of the hits that would otherwise penetrate into the heart directly itself. It represents those dividing lines or sacred barriers like the blood-brain barrier, the heart-blood barrier, emotional barriers. This is the system I work with most when helping those injured by the Rona jabs and engineered pathogens. So, do you notice being easily affected by the environment around you, or taking in feelings and energies of others? Or are you more rigid and overly guarded and closed off? Either one of those, your pericardium system may need some support. Okay, next. The small intestine. The small intestine is the yang partner of the heart. It's the innermost guard of the sacred ruler. The small intestine, as the classics say, separates the clear from the turbid. It listens intently, observing, discerning, and refining what's most supportive of and integrity with the well-being of the inner sanctum and the kingdom at large. The distinguishing between who and what is me and who and what is not me happens here. The work of the small intestine is this constant cultivation of presence and connectedness with ourselves, others, the mandate of the heart, the ancestors, and the divine. So imbalance in this system will involve issues around discernment, keeping priorities straight, knowing the self, and the capacity to hear the heart's wisdom. So just thinking about this for a minute. The microbiome lives largely in the small intestine. So it makes sense that the small intestine is about communication and distinguishing self from non-self. So I just want you to think about that. So coming back to the time, the body clock, how do you feel between the hours of 1 and 3 p.m.? Do you feel clear, enlivened, present? Or do you feel foggy, heavy, and muddled? So recent events and certain medical interventions or just our current general way of life are blowing open these boundaries that I talked about. We talked a little bit about this in the gallbladder episode as well. They're allowing for direct interference with the sacred heart, our deepest core and truest selves. The jabs, pharmaceuticals, overuse and constant microdosing via glyphosate of broad spectrum antibiotics, non-native EMFs, overstimulation, etc., 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 all deteriorate, erode, destroy these protective boundaries physically, energetically, and spiritually, and thus distort our coherent connection and communication, not just cellularly, but also with our spirit self and the divine. So looking at all of this can be easy to feel vulnerable, attacked, fearful, and disempowered. Like we need some serious protection. And that's valid, but not at the expense of our radiance or sovereignty or our spirit. So I just want to take a minute here and talk about protection and boundaries. Chinese medicine and most ancient healing traditions have long known that wellness is more about tending the terrain rather than avoiding germs, killing pathogens, and hiding from or fearing everyday life. The opposite is true. We're meant to enjoy life. That's what the fire element is all about. And a vibrant terrain creates space for that. Healthy terrain, body, mind, and spirit, requires the nourishing of life, including and especially the germs or the microbiome of hundreds and thousands of bacteria, fungi, and viruses that make up the living being of our bodies and the natural intelligence there in the living world. Who do you think is communicating within the small intestine? It's the microbiome. It's the little critters in there. That's the intelligence, or at least part of it. Most of the things or pathogens mainstream medicine views as problematic or disease are actually just opportunistic entities that flourish when there's a space for them to do so. When there are gaps or we're deficient in nutrients, life force, presence, etc., those spaces will be filled with what can thrive there. We have a problem with pathogenic overgrowths like SIBO and Candida, or superbugs like MRSA and C. diff have happened as a result of a void needing to be filled. We're overusing antibiotics, including glyphosate. I want to drive that point home. Glyphosate is a broad spectrum antimicrobial that is in and on everything. And we're constantly exposed to this and putting on hand sanitizer and overly sanitizing all the things, which obliterates our healthy, helpful bacteria, creating a void. There's no guardians at the gate, so opportunists grow and thrive. Most viral infections are the result of nutrient deficiencies, a hole being filled. Big Pharma depends on our disempowerment and lack of knowledge of our own bodies. A hole. The government becomes unjust and totalitarian when we, the people, allow it. And energetic or psychic attacks happen when we don't fill our own fields with our own life force. If you don't take up your own space, and embody your true essence and radiate it out vibrantly, someone or something else will. Protection is less about fear, hiding, sterilizing, camouflaging, or dimming, and more about filling in, taking up space, holding your ground, and infusing every bit of your massive field with more of you and your unique light, with more of who you already are innately. This is what the sun hovers over in the summertime with its more focused and intense energy. This is what we're cultivating in the fire element and fire season. This is what we're blooming into during the year of the fire horse. More of who we truly are. More spirit and soul dwelling within our physical bodies, more consciousness infused into life, more care, connection, and coherence creating the new. So, back to our emptying. The empty is what makes things useful, right? Like a mug or the hole at the center of the wheel or the intelligence that lives and moves within the empty spaces inside our bodies. We need to have space so that we can fill more of that with our light. So, and we tend to get bogged down, right? We talked about all the crud that comes in here that we're bombarded with all day and night, every day and night. So I like to do a super simple emptying practice. And I wanted to share a version of that with you. This can look like a whole bunch of different things. You can use different tools. You can use acupoints. You can use oils and flower essences. I use all and some depending on what I'm doing and where I'm at. But today we're going to keep it super basic. So this emptying practice is about clearing and emptying our selves, and fields of what is not us, and refilling our selves, and fields with more of our usness. So, if it feels good, close your eyes and just take some time to come into your body, allowing the outer world sounds and sensations to dim and hush. Slowly moving your awareness down and in, you begin to connect with your breath. Notice how it nourishes your lungs and expands your heart as you breathe in, feeling the ease and relief of release as you breathe out. Take a few breath cycles here, just noticing how naturally this filling, expansion, and relieving release is happening. Without you thinking about it all day, every day, your body is built to expand and release. On your next exhale, and for your next 3 exhales, we're going to focus on emptying. So when you find that exhale, say to yourself out loud or quietly, I now release all energy that is not my own. Breathing in, as you feel any tension or weight that's not yours to carry, leave each of your cells, all your muscles, and out of your field. Repeat this 2 more times. Feel the breath working as a sort of squeegee, clearing away all not you-ness. Next exhale. I now release all energy that is not my own. Feeling the sludge and static of the day, week, decade emptying out of you. 1 more time. I now release all energy that is not my own. Hold for a couple of seconds at the bottom of this exhale. Savor that emptiness. On your next inhale, and for the next 3 inhales, we're going to be filling ourselves with more of ourselves, more of our special, weird kind of usness. So when you find that inhale, Say to yourself out loud or quietly, I call back all my own energy now, feeling your cells become more alive. Next, inhale. I call back all of my own energy now, all holes, deficiencies, and crannies filling with more of your conscious presence. Inhale. I call back all of my own energy now, holding at the top of this inhale and feeling illuminated as the light of your own being pushes up into the edges of your entire field, embodying more of yourself here and now. Come back to normal breathing. Feel the tingling of your own energy as it moves in and through your entire mind, body, and spirit. Feel the electricity glimmering and fortifying your field. If it feels good, smiling and thanking yourself as you wiggle your enlivened toes and open your bright, Shen, sparkly eyes. I like to do this quick practice at least twice a day. In the morning, either before I open my eyes for the day, but most of the time I'm doing it as I'm sitting out under the sunrise. And I like to do it again at night while I'm settling into bed before I go to sleep. I just find I'm a clearer channel and more present for myself and my people when I consistently do this practice at least these times of day. As a sensitive or an empath or an energy worker, someone who works with people in person and remotely on the physical, energetic, and soul levels, I find it imperative to also clear in some way or do this exercise between peopling, between interactions. And then also anytime I notice a feeling of interference, muddled sensing, or the not enoughs or the too muches. I'm not enough or I'm too much. When I catch myself being reactive or overly guarded. When I'm saying yes when I really mean no. When I feel like I'm carrying things I'm not sure need to be carried or if they're even mine. Those are other times when I do this practice. And it seemed like it took some time, but it's really quick when you just don't have to talk anybody through it. And you're just doing it for those 3 cycles of exhaling focus and 3 cycles of inhaling focus. All right, so I want to hop into an acupuncture point that is very helpful for balancing the fire element. Okay, so this point is on the triple warmer meridian, the Sanjiao meridian. It's the second point on the meridian. It's called Yemen or fluid gate. And so to locate it, it's just in between your pinky and ring finger in the webbing, and you'll feel tenderness there. Most people have some pretty significant tenderness at this point these days. And this point, it's Yemen, like I said, Yemen. It's the yin, spring, and water point on a fire meridian. So Yi has to do with fluids or essence. It's to do with lymphatics, interstitial, intelligent waters. And Men means gate, passageway, lineage, to safeguard, to listen with your ears closed, listening to and with our heart to hear the voice of spirit or the divine. At this point, keeps things that should be in, and what should be out. It helps to resolve stagnation and clear pathogens or pathogenic influences that are in the body. You can think of this point as kind of the imperial bodyguard standing at the threshold of the kingdom, kind of like we talked about before. It's on that outer frontier, that outermost gate. It ensures proper fluid movement and lubrication or hydration within the body. So we're talking about lymphatics, like I was saying, interstitial fluid, the liquid form of fascia, and everything else that I can't think of right now. It modulates when there's too much or when there's not enough. So when there's too much, it helps clear stagnation and excess. And when there's not enough, it helps nourish and moisten and lubricate. This point also helps to regulate hormones and secretions. It cools excessive, overly heated emotional agitation or outbursts. It can help us embrace people in life. So this point can be helpful for those times when we feel maybe uncomfortable in crowds or around people and we prefer to be alone, but we also are feeling depressed about that. Like most of the time, I enjoy my own company and I need alone time. But sometimes I get a little bummed about it and feel like I want to be around people, but I just can't people right now. This kind of helps regulate that friction. And that point would be wonderful to use with that emptying exercise that we just shared. Or it's also helpful with, like dryness. If your skin's really dry, or if you feel really thirsty, or like I said before, if your lymphatics are sluggish, it helps to modulate all of that and regulate all of that. Okay, so there's so much more that I can share about within the realm of fire. Be sure to check out our 5 things for a healthy fire season post on Instagram. If you missed last year's fire season with us, or you just want a refresher, hop over to that Instagram feed and look for my guided heart meditation to cultivate greater coherence in body and mind. I also have information about rose medicine, which is really important for the fire element. We also shared about pink yarrow flower essences for healthy boundaries. There's a cooling chrysanthemum tea recipe and an acupoint called Palace of Weariness on the Pericardium channel for cultivating safe haven while healing. We'll link those in the show notes below too. Okay, that feels like plenty for today. We covered a lot. We touched on a lot here. This, remember, is the sacred space, that spark of divinity within us. So there's a lot of layers here, but that feels like enough for today. So be sure to join us in just a few short weeks when we dig into Earth season during late summer. And thank you so much for being here today and sharing the light of your presence with us. We'll see you next time. Disclaimer, not medical advice. The information shared in this episode is for general entertainment and educational purposes only. It's not intended to replace consultation with a trusted and qualified healthcare professional. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have and before beginning any exercise, nutrition, or wellness program.